like, wait, it's over? So, hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
This light is really
I know, there's like a projector
bright.
in our eyes.
It's definitely bright.
It's okay. We don't need to see. So, how's everybody feeling now? All right?
That's great.
She really, really wanted to sneak in to see you guys' reaction to the end. I was like, the door's right by the screen. I don't know. So, we did it. Do you want me to ask the question? Because you said it was funny. Okay.
Yeah.
We were talking shop, and she's like, I don't know what to say because I'm just the actress.
I always feel weird because there's only so many questions you can ask the actor that it's so limited. But
yeah.
But ask the question.
The one question I was never going to ask, but you said it was actually a good story. So, how did you get involved in this project?
Thank you for asking. So I know Dave Lawson, who's a producer of this movie, and he texted me at like 11 o'clock one night and was like, you want to come do this movie with Jeremy Gardner? And I'm a huge Jeremy Gardner fan, and now Christian Steller fan, who I didn't know before this. They co-directed. And I was like, yeah, and he sent me the script, and I read it, and I cried, and I was like, oh, I gotta come do this. And he's like, great, you have to audition. And I am snobby, and don't like to audition for things that often at this point when you make them for a certain budget level. But they were like, well, if you don't audition, you can't have the movie. And so they sent me some scenes that are in the movie, but I was like, whatever. So instead of doing those scenes, I memorized the monologue and sent them the monologue. And I got the part that way because I did not what was asked of me. Instead, I did something more, sort of, but I think it was impressive enough. But
that's the one.
That's the only good audition story I've ever had in my entire life, but you guys don't seem impressed by it. Come on.
Well, I mean, you just led into the thing that I really want to talk about on the actor level is how you approach something like that. That monologue lasts a long time, and it's just, yeah, and like I mean, besides the reactions, it's just you, like, being in it for that long.
Yeah.
Like, how do you approach that? How do you get in that spot and stay in that spot? And how many takes did that take?
Yeah, you really get to see what it's like to be in a relationship with me. Yeah, we did it a lot. So we dedicated a whole night to that. And once they lit it, everyone left except for me and Jeremy and Christian and Dave Lawson, essentially. Like, everyone else was cleared. And we just did it over and over again. I think we did it like 11 or 12 times, and I think that's like the 11th take. It's like way into it, wow. I think is what they've told me. And Jeremy's idea for it was that he's a big theater guy, and he wanted it to feel like a play. Yeah. You know, he put it in the frame, and it looks like, you know, a play, and he wanted that moment to be a play. They didn't tell me till the day before that it was all going to be one take. Because normally as an actor, you're like, oh, this is fine. I'll like, you know, I'll, you know, if I don't get it all the way through, we'll cut, and I'll be like, what's my line again? And that's not the way I was able to do it. So I had to just do it all the way through. I think we only messed it up one time. There's only maybe one take that's like a shit take. All the other ones are. Yeah.
I just know that I'd be like on my second to last line and be like, fuck.
I know, it was really nerve-wracking. Yeah. But no, with Jeremy's such a good actor, and he's so in it that you never have that moment where you're like, oh no, am I by myself up here? You know, I always felt very supported the whole time, and yeah.
Well, there's a lot of he gives you a lot in body language. And,
he does, yeah.
And it almost made me nervous because it looked like he was going to respond a lot of the time, and he didn't.
Me too. Like doing the monologue, the whole time he would like move, and I'm like, oh, is he gonna say something? Because there actually, I think, are a few takes where he does, where he says things and talks. But for the most part, it was just like that over and over again. And there's ones that I think are way more emotional, ones are way less emotional, and I kind of went with one sort of in the middle, which I think really worked.
And kind of, I mean, as an actor, of course, but also as a viewer, what's it like to see the finished film when you're not on set, you're not on screen, but your character is so looming large over all the action, like to see that?
Yeah, because I was really only there, I was maybe there 2 weeks, but they shot a lot before I got there. They shot all the bar stuff before I got there, and yeah, so it is really strange to see it, especially, I mean, I read the script and stuff, but it's almost exactly like I imagined it would be, I guess, from the script. It follows the script pretty closely, and I was so familiar, because I'm a huge fan of The Battery, I was so familiar with his acting that I was kind of like knew what it was going to be like, I guess, and their whole style. I mean, kind of felt
There's just
exciting.
not very many movies I can think of where an off-screen character drives the action of the entire movie, like really. So I just wondered what that's like to see that, because you're not there, but you are.
Right. Well, thank you. I live large.
Does anyone have a question here before I take up all our time? Yeah, go ahead.
How many takes did you guys do for the Stay video? I mean, the Stay song.
Oh, for the Stay song. Not that many. That was a big night because we shot that and the full monster fight all on the same night. So as you can imagine, that was like a lot.
Yeah.
And I think he only sang it through a couple of times. I think we didn't. He may correct me, and you're gonna put this video somewhere. But I think it was only a couple of times, and maybe only once all the way through, like turning around on all of us, sort of. Like it wasn't that many.
And you can sing.
Yeah.
He sings so well. It's like I know it's really frustrating. No one should be that talented. It's really annoying to me. You can write and do all those things. But yeah, that was a big night it was a full night shoot. Sun was coming up like the next day, kind of day.
Anyone else? Or should we just chat? Yeah, there you go.
During the intimate, funny moments with the two, how much of that was on the script and how much of that was just you guys playing off of each other and like just having fun and getting into the moment?
That's interesting. There's actually so like there's some stuff where we had full dialogue and they took it all out. Like there's a full conversation that happens in that hammock where I'm like reading and then I like tump the hammock over and all that stuff. There's like a full thing that's not in the movie anymore. But then some of the stuff, like all the stuff with the cat, was not scripted. So that was just like they brought a cat in and we talked about the cat and like we just made jokes to each other. And by that point, because we shot a lot of the end first, by that point we were already like pretty close to each other. And we shot the beginning last. That was the very last thing we shot. All the stuff like in the house and the flashbacks with the tape and all that kind of stuff, that was what we shot at the end. So it actually worked really well because we knew each other really well by then. We're really comfortable. And we did some improvising. We make a lot of jokes at each other, and I think that obviously you picked up on it. But yeah, so I think it was a mix, but a lot of it's on the page, and like the monologue, that was like all on the page. So like the writing is just really great, and when you're reading a script like that, you're like, oh, I can hear it in my head, and that's super helpful as an actor.
If you know the answer to this, I'm just dying to know. Whose idea was it for the Jump Cut Cafe t-shirt?
I don't know. Who's wearing a Jump Cut Cafe t-shirt?
The cat section.
Oh, is he?
He's standing behind the cat.
I would assume Dave Lawson. Or Justin was there too, so it could be either one of those guys. Because Jeremy and Christian live in Florida, they wouldn't know. That's so interesting. I never even noticed that before. That's funny.
I think you got up a little earlier, yeah, in the back.
Congratulations! I really enjoyed the movie, and I loved your chemistry with Jeremy was just terrific, and all the friends, the whole group felt very real and pretty. So when asked, and I'm going to ask you, what would you say this movie is about? Not what happens in the movie, but what's the movie about?
That's a good question. We keep calling it a mon-rom, a monster romantic, or rom-mon, a romantic monster movie, because that's what I think it is. I think it's a romance, personally. Like when I read it, it felt to me like it felt like a romantic story between a couple where things had sort of fallen apart, and I think that was what really drew me in, where it was like, you see all these movies about couples who are just getting together and how exciting and cool that is, but like what happens when you're 10 years in and you're like, I am bitter, I am angry, like I have a lot of anger about this relationship, and that felt very truthful to me. It I don't want to say too much, it has some like truth in it from Jeremy's life, from not his current relationship, and so that I think is at the core. It's just, I think it's a romance. I think it's a romantic movie.
Someone over here?
Oh.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
because you were saying about character off screen like influencing the story, and it really reminded me of like Kramer versus Kramer, but like Joanna when she like comes back at the end, and it's this relationship is almost like before they had the kid and get married, and I was just curious, where do you think Hank and Abby ended up after the movie?
Oh my god. I mean, I'm an optimist, so I would like to think. I think they get married. I do think they get married, but you know, I'm speaking from Abby's point of view, and I would hope that we move out of the house. I very much identified with Abby in a lot of ways, and I think it was good because Abby had an advocate there where I was like, no, this house is crazy. That house actually had no electricity, no running water, and there were snakes falling from the ceiling. You think I'm exaggerating? Snakes literally fell from the ceiling. You can ask anyone who was there. I hate snakes. It was horrifying. There was a porta potty. I refused to use it. I made everyone drive me to the gas station. It was like a real nightmare situation, so it wasn't really a nightmare. But and also it was really hot. Florida.
It wasn't a nightmare. Here's everything else.
Here's
that was
everything
wrong.
else that I really hated about it. But I think because like I really felt like I related to this character in every way. And so yeah, I think like I would hope we get exactly what Abby wants. Or else I do think she would leave him. I think she would leave him. I think she was like, I was on my way out the door. And like if there wasn't a change, it was like, why am I doing here anymore? And I don't think I was willing to put up with it for much longer.
Okay, right here.
What was the process like being directed by an actor you had seen with? Did you find it challenging, liberating?
That's a good question. So there's two of them. There's two directors. So it's Christian and Jeremy. And they kind of divided it up a little bit, but for the most part, Jeremy kind of was like, do the thing you did to get the role. And there weren't like a ton of notes, but sometimes they'd give me like specific stuff. But yeah, it wasn't that crazy. I mean, I've acted and directed and stuff too. So like I have a lot of respect for it and know how hard it is. But yeah, he wasn't doing a ton of, there wasn't a ton of direction like acting wise, I would say. And it was more about the feel of the scene and getting to know that as we like worked through it.
Right.
Did you pick a lot of your own costumes? Because by the time you came back in, when you came in the scene where you come back, I was like, man, this woman is dying to get out of this small town.
Because of what I was wearing?
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is like...
They were all my clothes, and I did my own hair and makeup. So that is literally Brea. It's such a Brea, and everything. Because sometimes I'll put on those clothes, and I'm like, ugh, are people gonna think about that movie? Like, 'cause I'm wearing this shirt. Actually, one of the shirts I wear in the long monologue scene belonged to Elise, who's Christian's wife. But everything else, yeah, they had no. It's a low budget movie. There was no wardrobe. There was no hair and makeup, and I was the only woman, and for most of it, so. And they didn't feel like they needed one. I'm not really sure. I think they picked me up at the airport the night before, and I was like, who's the hair and makeup on this? And they were like, oh, we don't have one. And I was like, I need to go to a store and buy makeup then, because I don't travel with a ton of makeup.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Thanks for watching this movie.
Just a couple more. I was just wondering if you knew anything. Oh my goodness. like with the screener I got, the title was Something Else.
That's right. It was called Something Else.
Yeah.
The word Something Else.
I know. I did that out there, and they're like, what was it called?
Yeah.
It was
It's a real who's on first situation. Yeah. That was the problem.
The way I kind of watched the movie, does that kind of... Because the monster, to me, was kind of emblematic of his inability to, like settle down and make a commitment and not hunt, as you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that title is kind of more referring to that, maybe?
Yeah, and I also think, I don't remember if this made it in the script, there was a line where people kept saying, like, he's like, it's a monster, and people were like, no, it's just something else, like that. I think that was part of it too. I think it's the greatest title ever.
So many pun possibilities.
So many, but you can't.
Like, do you want to see this or something else?
Yeah, it's a big problem.
It's like,
or I would it premiered at Tribeca last year, and I'd be like, oh, I have something else playing at Tribeca.
Yeah.
They'll be like, what was the first movie you had playing there? I'm like,
it's fun.
yeah, it's not fun. It's
no.
a real issue.
Okay.
So now it's after midnight.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So, that's Kaylee was saying. She kept waiting for them to say, for you to say after midnight, because you're like, when's this coming?
Oh. Do we say it?
No.
Oh.
Sounds close.
Yeah.
Also, I just have to share that I was watching this in a New Orleans hotel, and the 1 minute it decided to buffer consistently was right when he just does the ring, and he's like this, and it cuts to her face, and I get the little circle every time. So when she got here, I was like, how does the movie end? So yeah, that was pretty much it. So I just got a circle instead of a cut to black. Any others before we just call it, or last minutes? All right, then let's just. Oh, okay.
What was the turnaround time from when you sent in your monologue, like you got the role, to when you guys were filming?
Not like 3 weeks, 4 weeks maybe. I think I remember I went to Europe, so maybe it was about maybe it was more like 4 or 5 weeks. It was like indie movie time, you know. Like I feel like sometimes indie movies it's like you're here in 2 days, but for the most part, I feel like they plan a little bit further out than like TV or something like that. Yeah.
Cool. Last chance. If not, let's just make sure we let them know how much we like the movie. Yeah, this theater, if you want to stick around, the stylist, which I wrote, and the features being shot here, we're showing the short in just a little bit. So
yeah.
Come back in, hang out with us.
What's next?